Grow, the world's leading and most comprehensive coaching and consulting firm for long term residential property management entrepreneurs. For over a decade and a half, we've brought innovative strategies and optimization to the property management industry. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses, the business owners, and change their lives. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. Now, let's get into the show. So, today's episode, our guest is Brian Seidensticker of Mount North Capital. And we're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges property management entrepreneurs face, having access to capital at the exact moment opportunity strikes. So, if you've ever been presented with an incredible acquisition, expansion opportunity, or growth moment, and you wish you had immediate access to funds to confidently move forward, we're going to unpack that today. And that's what we're going to chat about. So, welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. I guess
Yeah.
having me back, right?
Yes, it's good to have you. So cool. So let's get into this. So let's give everybody a little bit of background first, and what do people need to know about Brian that have listened to this? This is the first episode, first time.
Well, I think maybe brief history of how myself and we, right, which is Mountain North Capital, came to be. I'm actually an engineer by trade, and I'd say in a different life, Jason, I would be reaching out to you for help on how to figure out this business that I randomly went off and created, and then found myself 8 years later going, man, this is outgrowing my capabilities. What do I do? I got a similar help in the form of a group that I joined called Entrepreneurs Organization, and it's been transforming, right? Getting that help from somebody that knows how to take what you build to the next level. So as part of that, really what we ended up doing is we went from a data software company that had reached a ceiling. We had a really unique data set, and then we built a fund, which is Mount North Capital, around the ability, or really the model of using that data and acquiring assets in certain markets where we felt, with this analytics, we could buy properties at a really great discount, right? Using, not only the platform, but then the style of auctions that we attend. But a key component of that was the partners that we worked with, right, and still work with today. And we were very successful in building partnerships with boots on the ground and folks that knew what to do with these properties, because we had a great way of identifying, and we had the capital available to acquire those assets, right? At the time, these are auctions that required cash, right? And that's the hard part. And it worked out really well. We went from $1 million proof of concept fund to last month we were about 58 million of assets under management, and so it's been great. But it certainly has also uncovered other opportunities for us along the way. The typical partner that we work with is kind of the fix and flip strategy, right? But we felt a lot of the opportunities that we were seeing is much more in the I'll say fixed to rent, buy and rent, right? It was the long-term hold strategy where we had an excellent avenue of acquiring, right, and getting them there, right? But what we were looking for and lacked is really the property managers that we want to partner with in those areas. And our I don't want to give away all of the special sauce, or we can dive into the details, but that's really what's led us to where we're at today. Is we're kind of at this pivot point, and we've built a couple relationships with great partners in a couple markets, and now we're wanting to grow that, right, and find more partners in more markets.
Yeah, we want all the special sauce, Brian. Give it to us. I'm just kidding. So, I mean, the reality is, eh, most would never, even if they knew what you were doing, most wouldn't even do it. Like most people don't implement. That's just reality in life, right? Like a lot of people are like, how's DoorGrow helping people grow? I'll tell you, I give away free videos that teach you like what we do, but until they join our program, they find it difficult or hard to figure stuff out on their own. They don't do it.
Mhm.
So awesome. So Brian, obviously you believe in mentorship and coaching, and you've gotten, you have had resources that have helped you get to where you're at now. Um, so let's get into the topic at hand. Um, so let's unpack. How is Mountain North Capital helping property management business owners unlock strategic funding solutions that fuel growth? Right? How do we do this?
Yeah, I think kind of thinking out loud here a little bit, right? But I'm a big fan of, this probably may sound cliche, like win-win, right? Is
Yeah.
we're not a bank, right? It's like, hey, I got a better rate than you do. And we're not in it, purely for ourselves. And so everything we go into, we look at it as a partnership, right? But it also has to make sense for the folks that we're going to partner with. And so, really what we are looking for are, and the partnerships that we found to be very successful are scenarios where, if there's a property manager, or I guess an property manager that maybe wants to get into the business, right? An aspiring property manager, if you will.
Yeah.
And they have access to either it's a deal or a market or a portfolio, right? Where maybe they don't have the ability to take that down themselves, right? And because I know full well, right? Why would you partner with somebody, for the capital access if you have the ability to buy it yourself? It always makes sense to buy it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so really what we're looking for are folks that maybe have, scenarios or deals that come across, right, that would allow them to grow their portfolio that they're managing, right, grow their business, right? Especially if they think of it as a business. But maybe don't necessarily have the capital stack that allow them to pursue that to its fullest. Then we might be a partner, and it is a partnership to help
Yeah.
them grow that business, really with a different tool in their belt than they maybe have ever had before. And that's really, what we when we were talking with, I'll say, potential partners, on this concept. Initially, it was, hey, we were only interested in the acquisition and the, get it ready for rent, and then Mount North's typical motto was, let's, refinance or sell it out. Like, let's get it out. We get it out of the fund as quickly as possible. And we had success in doing that. But a lot of times, the partners that we're working with, really they wanted to do that, but they wanted to keep it in their portfolio, make it a rental, right? Hold it for the long term. And so it was like a partial solution for them. And we, I guess, went out on a limb and built a structure with a couple of them that it took it beyond just that initial acquisition and say fix and flip stage to okay, now we've got another tool that we can bring, right, to the table from our end, a new fund, right, that allows us to take on those assets for the long term. And so we can partner with you beyond just that acquisition and disposition. And it's so far has been, I'll say, immensely rewarding, right? But it's still early, right? And we're definitely in the growth phase. And so it's an exciting adventure to embark on.
Yeah, I see it as this awesome win-win. There's three sort of challenges. One, there needs to be somebody with capital to deploy. There needs to be a really good property manager. But most property managers aren't good. Most suck. And then we need so we need somebody maybe to help bring those together, ta-da, door grow, and help those property managers be good. And so
Exactly.
I'm excited to maybe find you connect some of our potential clients, because this might be a way that our clients can grow their portfolios, maybe even have some ownership stake in some of these investments. And you bring your capital and stuff to the table. They're able to add value by making sure the properties are managed well. And then DoorGrow, we're able to help them be able to do that so that they are able to not be a sucky property management company, and that they're able to continually grow out the other arm of their portfolio with their direct third party owners. But the best properties for property managers to manage that make the most sense would be their own. It would be
Exactly.
something they have some sort of ownership stake in. We've got a client. We've got a client in our program, and he basically uses his property management business as a honeypot or fly trap or whatever you want to call it, to just like people look at it and go, oh, he offers property management, and they reach out to him and he convinces them to sell him their properties, and then he manages those. So, so most of the portfolio he has ownership stake in. He just works deals out,
Yeah,
and so a lot of property managers leave a lot of money on the table because they're not even focused on building their own portfolio. They're helping just manage other people's portfolios.
right. Right. No, and I think you're exactly right. I think the best scenario for property managers is to manage their own portfolio, right? And I think what we can allow, um, property managers, partners, right, to do is think of acquisitions, maybe where they didn't feel like that was an opportunity before.
Yeah.
And so, one recent example was a property manager working with in Mississippi who had an amazing opportunity to buy, right, a couple large multifamily buildings, right, and she's a fantastic property manager, but didn't necessarily have all of the requirements that the bank wanted to see in order to take down underperforming. One needed a full remodel, but the end goal is going to be a fantastic asset to work on and to manage
Yeah.
in the long run, right? And so we were able to partner on that, and so that's like the perfect scenario that we're looking for, is when
Mhm. Yeah.
somebody that is familiar with their market and familiar with the portfolios that are out there for sale, or familiar with that, if we want to be looked at as a partner that can help them either A, keep assets they already have under management, maybe moving from an owner that wants to sell and keep them in house, right? If it makes sense, maybe acquire assets in a little larger size than maybe they would typically be qualified for, right? The single family home is very different than a 44 unit multifamily, right? But the
Yeah.
management of those two isn't wildly different, right? It just, the bank doesn't see, the the sponsor, right, and all the requirements the bank requires is wildly different, right, as far as the equity that you need to bring to the table. And those are the scenarios where it truly, I think, can be that win-win. And long story short, Jason, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Awesome. So, I think a question for those listening, because I love the story, the example you gave. Excuse my voice. And I love that example. We see it all the time. Property managers get big portfolios from some investor, or they get an opportunity to get into a property. In this scenario, they don't have the money to do it, so they have a partner like you that has access to capital. But then the next step is they need systems, and a lot of times they don't have the systems to be able to handle that level of growth, because taking on another 100 units, another 200 units, like this starts to break some things in the business. So they're like, man, I need systems for hiring, I need systems for planning, I need systems for processes. And so at DoorGrow, if you're listening and you want to grow fast, like we built a program around that called the super system. It's those three systems: people, planning, and process. And when we get those things really well built out, those businesses become what I call infinitely scalable. So then they could work with somebody like you and just go crazy. They could just add lots of business, lots of doors, build things out. And if they're building equity as they're doing this, if they're taking ownership stake in this, that's even better. And so they're bringing deals to the table. You're bringing money to the table. Now, sometimes you're bringing money and a deal, it sounds like, but you need a property manager.
Yes, right, and yes. There are certainly scenarios where we have assets we'd like to move into this model, and so having
Yeah.
those ready-made, hey, we're looking for the partner, right, to take that portfolio to the next level, right, or next phase. But we're not just looking for any property manager. To your exact point, and I think
Yeah.
I'm maybe speaking to the wrong audience, because I think anybody listening to this is already in the right mindset, because they are thinking about how to grow their business and how to learn, right, and how to have the right mindset, right. But a lot of
Yeah.
property managers out there, quite frankly, don't have that right mindset. And when you and I were speaking offline, Jason, it was like so many light bulbs were going off, and this was such a perfect scenario where for somebody to grow, they need lots of things, right? Capital is one, right, and flexible like partner is one, which we can bring. but they're
Yeah.
going to inevitably, like any business, they're going to inevitably hit a ceiling where they're limited, right?
Yeah.
Limited typically by time, right? And
Mhm.
that time can be, regained, right, by, like you said, people, systems, and
Yeah, you
um,
buy time.
yeah. So it's how do you? But you need to be willing to implement those things in order to grow beyond that, ceiling. And so it's having that right mindset. And I'd say most, if not everybody listening here, already has what sounds like, could be that mindset. And that's where I thought I got really excited about how can we, work more together with your audience and your, really your members, right? The people that are implementing the systems that you have.
Yeah.
That's the exact recipe that I feel like has such great potential for success. Um, I mean, if you can't tell, I'm rather
Yeah,
excited.
I'm excited about it too because all of our clients want to build their portfolios. They all want to build equity. They want to build ownership stake. They want investments. They usually believe in the vehicle of investing. Otherwise, why would they be selling property management, which is selling that vehicle? And so, yeah, so I think it's a solid win-win-win for all three parties, and I'm excited to connect you with clients that I think would be good fits. So how do you decide markets that make sense for you? So if property managers come to you and like, Brian, like I want to get more doors, like let's do some deals together. What markets would you say no to? You're like, this doesn't make sense. We aren't going to deploy capital into that state or that area.
Yeah, it's probably easier to say, paint the picture of the hard nose, right, and then, maybe back into the areas, because the hard
Yes, let's
nose
do that.
are, I'd say, in the general, very sought after grade A rentals in markets where everyone wants to be, is probably not exact fit for what we're looking for, right? Or the partnerships we're looking for. So what do I mean, right? I would say that
Some
it basically
examples.
writes off most of California, most of New York, right? Most, I'd say, hot markets of even like where I'm from, which is Western Montana. Unfortunately, the show Yellowstone has totally ruined the market there as far as buying
Really?
is at a rate that you could make a decent rental income
Yeah.
from, right? And those are the areas where it just doesn't quite make sense, right? And I'm looking at it from both our and, right, the property manager's perspective, right? There's got to be
Yeah.
enough meat on the bone for everybody. But if it's in I'll say a secondary, tertiary market, right? So
Okay.
maybe not Austin directly downtown, but maybe around Austin, right, where you can have at least 20 or more units up and running within a 12-month period, which is a pretty
Okay.
wide net, right?
Yeah.
But then you can also, have enough, rent to, let's say, loosely 1% of the value of the property, as a gross rental amount.
Yeah.
And you can fit those two requirements as far as growth potential and rental income potential,
Okay.
then, and right, you have a need or an opportunity that can turn into an amazing, um, long-term hold scenario. I
Uh-huh.
say that only because it doesn't have to be existing cash flow. It can, like, that multifamily unit I talked about, right? It's actually two buildings, and one of the buildings is entirely empty, right? That's
Okay.
what, right, when it's done and stabilized, it will be an amazing opportunity to hold, right, in the long term. So anybody that's listening that says, "Man, I'm in the right market. Yeah, I can get the rate you're talking about," and I see those type of deals all day long, right? That's exactly who we want to talk to.
What about, there's areas like Florida right now where like the people cannot their rent rate is now dipped below mortgage rates in areas. It doesn't make sense cash flow wise, but long term it still may make sense.
Yeah, I think it really depends, right? Because we do, some work in Florida, but the acquisition has to be, special, right? And so
Yeah.
I can't say a hard no on all instances, but in most cases, it's going to be very, very difficult. In the cases where it makes a lot of sense is typically those scenarios where there's a lot of urgency to an acquisition because the deal is here today, but it's not going to be there in 2 weeks, right? And we can
Okay.
come to the table and say, okay, right, if the numbers make a lot of sense, sure, we can close in 2 weeks. that's one of the things that we bring to the table is that flexibility from a capital standpoint. So it can work in Florida, but it's not going to work as well as it does in some other areas, like in Georgia, right, or Ohio, or Michigan, or Indiana, or Texas. Those are some areas that we've done a lot of partnerships in, and want to do
Okay.
more.
So let's have you say a message to everybody that's listening, because there's a lot of property managers that might hear this. My message to them is, look, if your business stuff isn't tight, if you operationally right now, your capacity without having to hire a bunch of people or build out new systems, your capacity right now is 200 doors you could add into the business in a short time period. That's healthy. If it's 100, then that's okay. If you say, well, we can handle another 50 units, that's bad. And that could happen very fast if
Hmm.
you start growing. If we start helping you grow, if you get a BDM, anything. So you need to fix some things. So assuming there's people listening that have a decent or a healthy capacity right now to grow their business, what would be what would be your message to them? Like, hey, if your area is like this, then let's have a conversation. Maybe go talk to DoorGrow and get cleaned up, but like, let's have a conversation. Maybe we can do some deals.
Well, one of my requirements, right, is we do want to scale on a significant level, and
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things that I'm asking everybody, right, is almost a requirement. You need to be signed up through DoorGrow or something similar, and not trying to solve all of those scale problems yourselves. And so, if you're
Okay.
listening right now and you are, already on board with DoorGrow, great. Reach out to us directly. If you're listening right now and you aren't signed up for DoorGrow, right, or something similar, then I would request, right, that you do that, or at least be planning to do that, because that's going to be one of our requirements. Just trying to be straight with everybody out there right
Okay.
now.
I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. That sounds cool. So then your existing partners that you had before you met DoorGrow, some of them are probably going to start running into some scaling issues because
Mhm.
you've got capital and you keep throwing property at them. Then maybe the idea is where DoorGrow is going to start helping them with some of that stuff, then potentially.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'm not kidding. Where it's going to be a requirement where all of our property managers that we're working with are working with DoorGrow, or something. I don't even know if there's anything even remotely close to what DoorGrow provides, but they have to have some
Yeah, I
solution
don't know either.
of enabling and helping them. The only one that comes to mind would be like a YPO, which is usually really large, organizations, or an EO, entrepreneurs organization, that provide
Yeah.
resources that help you get beyond. But if you have none of that, you're gonna. And I'm just speaking from experience, right? I didn't have that, and that ceiling that stood there for almost 4 or 5 years felt impossible to break through unless you have those um, those resources available to you.
Yeah.
And so it may sound like a weird requirement, but trust me, we're both going to be a lot happier in that partnership if you're willing to take that leap, and make that a part of our joint plan going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not the only property management coach out there. I think I'm biased, but I'm the best. And our company is the best. Sarah, my wife, also amazing. Like we're the best, I think, in the world. And you don't have to work with DoorGrow, but you got to work with somebody. Like,
Mhm.
I agree. Like I was that guy that thought I knew everything in the beginning, trying to get my business to grow, struggling, struggling to pay team members, struggling to make cash flow. Like, that's early stage entrepreneurism. And eventually I realized, oh, I could go a lot faster with a mentor. And any money I spent on a decent mentor, I made back 10 times that usually. So it was like it eventually became the biggest no brainer ever. I'm like, let's spend 6 figures on coaches and mentors annually. Like, if we make a little bit of progress, and it feeds my addiction to learning. So I've always got multiple coaches and mentors going at any given time. Yeah, and I love learning, but it also allows me to be able to facilitate and turn around and benefit others, and which I also just really love and enjoy doing. Okay, so let's say you've got some people that are their business is ready to grow. They've got the things to scale. Um, and they think their market has growth potential and income potential, then those that's the ideal. You want those people to reach out, and everyone's going to start making some money together.
Yes, exactly, right? So if you're again, if you're listening to this, you probably already have that right mindset. So you're partially already there, right? If you've got a market that you feel meets those rough requirements that I laid out, if you already are or are planning to engage Door Grow or some similar organization that you found on your own, and you can check those three boxes, then yeah, you can check us out. You can go to lastbestpartners.com, but reach out through that contact page, and just mention, hey, I saw Brian on Jason's podcast. I'd like to talk to him more. That would be fantastic.
So let's make this crystal clear for those that maybe they're newer, that maybe they are just property managers. They're not super seasoned in investments. Explain just one more time, what are you looking for market wise?
So there needs to be the potential, right, within 12 months of getting to 20 or more units, right? There's really no maximum. We in one market we've got.
And this is just like new construction builds is kind of what you're talking about, or
Well, yeah, we've done new construction in some markets, right? We've done full remodels in others, right? We've bought
okay,
existing cash flowing, multifamily distressed assets, right? Meaning the seller was in a very distressed state. We've done all three of
okay,
those, and so there you don't have to have a very specific model. There are our requirements are the cash flow piece, right? The mindset piece, right? And that ultimately, when we leave the conversation, we both feel like it's going to be a win-win partnership, because the hard, I say it's not a requirement, right? But the hard thing to express here, right, or say you're definitely in, is it really comes down to we look at a partnership. It's just like a marriage, right?
yeah,
You really you need to both have a lot of comfort going into that, because breaking up a partnership is as painful, if not more
yeah,
painful in some cases than a divorce, right? And so we're definitely gonna be able to get to that right conclusion right after we
mhm,
meet and talk through some stuff. And so if you're listening right now and you're like, I don't know if I like this guy Brian, well,
mhm.
chances of us getting along in the long run probably minimal. But if you're hey, I kind of like what Brian's let's do, he sounds like a reasonable guy, I'm a reasonable person too, we should chat, right? Then that's exactly who we want to talk to.
Got it. So worst case scenario, if you're listening to this, you're a property management business owner. You would like to get a bunch of doors fed to you, but not just doors for you to manage. You'll get that, and you'll be you're not managing for free. You're going to get management, but you want to get investments. Like you want to build equity and whatever. Then it may be worth talking to Brian, having a conversation, and then if you're listening to this and you're struggling in your business, you like want to have capacity, you're burnt out currently, you want systems, you want to figure out growth, which is not a hard problem to figure out, and just getting some doors locally, third party or whatnot, then reach out to us at DoorGrow. So how can they reach you, Brian?
Well, the easiest thing is go to lastbestpartners.com. There's a contact link there. Reach out. That actually it goes to me and my right hand person. So you'll be speaking to one of the two people that you would eventually talk to anyway, and that way you'll get a reply as quick as possible.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
No, I guess on the topic of what are we not looking for. So if you're
Yeah.
listening right now and you're like, I might be able to use them, but I got capital. I don't need them. I'm at 500 units.
Okay.
Why would I want to? Then don't. It's fine, right? You've got the winning solution. That's not the type of partnership that I think will be successful for both of us.
Mhm.
And so kudos to those that have got to that point. But I guess no need to reach out to us to try and find something that may not be there.
Got it. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, anybody listening, if you've ever felt stuck or stagnant, you want to take your business to the next level, check us out at doorgrow.com. For a free training on how to get unlimited leads for free, text the word leads to 512-648-4608. Also, join our free Facebook community just for property management business owners by going to doorgrowclub.com. And if you want tips, tricks, ideas, and to learn about our offers, subscribe to our newsletter by going to doorgrow.com/subscribe. And if you found this even a little bit helpful, don't forget to subscribe on whatever channel you saw this on and leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. And until next time, remember, the slowest path to growth is to do it alone. So let's grow together. Bye, everyone.